We're ready to kick off this conference now with our very first session, which is on the future of work. And it is my pleasure to introduce Joe Barela, the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, a 1,300-person state agency that houses 6 divisions serving Colorado through resources for workers and employers, as well as public safety and regulatory functions. Joe brings more than 25 years of experience in workforce issues and is seen as a local and national leader in the field. He is passionate about creating more opportunities for better career pathways for working Americans. Joe, it is great to have you.
Thank you and good morning. I appreciate you having me back again this year. I'd like to thank the Transamerica Institute, the Next 50 Initiative, and the University of Iowa's College of Public Health for inviting me to speak with you here today. I also would like to thank Governor Polis for sharing his remarks via that recorded message and his ongoing leadership and commitment towards policies that embrace all of Colorado and provide an opportunity for everyone to prosper as we emerge from the public health and economic crisis of COVID-19. I enjoyed being part of the 2020 conference, as the governor referenced last February or February of 2020, on age-friendly workplaces that kicked off this initiative. And I'm so glad that the work has continued and that all of you have joined to learn about new ways to recruit and retain our experienced workers here in Colorado. That conference took place in February, as I mentioned. At that point, our unemployment rate in Colorado was at a historic low of 2.9%. We discussed strategies to address the skilled worker shortage, to engage older workers who will continue to make up a significant portion of Colorado's labor force. On March 9th, we had 400 initial UI employments, and we're receiving about 1,000 calls per week into our unemployment insurance call center. 2 weeks later, on March 23rd, here in Colorado, we had over 24,000 initial unemployment insurance claims, and our call center was receiving 44,000 calls every day into that center. In April, Colorado, as well as the rest of the states in America, unemployment shot to historic highs. In Colorado, we went from a 2.9% unemployment to a 12.9% unemployment in April. We know the economic impacts of COVID hurt our low-wage workers, people of color, and women the hardest. According to the AARP, initial job losses from COVID-19 hit older workers harder as well. Between March and April of 2020, 10.9% of older workers fell into unemployment, compared to 8.9% of workers aged 35 to 54. And unemployed older adults were rehired more slowly. Currently, all older job seekers face both high rates of job loss and longer durations of unemployment. We know that as people remain on unemployment longer and longer, what we call long-term unemployed, it is very difficult to not only return to work, but return to work at the wage they were displaced at. So the work we have ahead of us is very hard, but we know it's work worth doing because, as the governor referenced, the reliancy on people staying in the workforce longer and working well into years beyond 50, 60, and 70 is going to be required as we continue to experience critical and acute workforce and skilled workforce shortages for decades to come. AARP research also shows that in 2020, 78% of older workers reported having seen or experienced age discrimination in the workplace. We know this is happening, the highest level since 2002. When AARP began surveying older workers on age discrimination, Hispanic, Latino older workers were most likely to report witnessing or experiencing age discrimination. Again, one of the populations who were most heavily impacted by the recession and the downturn in the displacement of the pandemic crisis. Well, I am proud to report that as of April in Colorado, we are at a 6.4% unemployment rate in Colorado. We know there is much work to do to ensure that we don't waste talent, and every Coloradan worker can reskill, upskill, and next skill to find a good career in our state as we recover from COVID-19 and prepare for the future of work. I mentioned the words reskill, upskill, and next skill because it's so important that every worker and potential worker realize that the world of one and done upskilling or education that's relevant to work are over. It is no longer appropriate or acceptable or even relevant that we don't realize lifelong learning has to be something that both workers, learners, and employers in government embrace. We need to make sure that our workforce that we have available to us in states and communities has access to skills training that makes them relevant to the work of today and the future. That is what CDLE is in the business of doing. Our mission is to promote a thriving employment environment with opportunity for every Coloradoan to prosper. Our vision is a working economy that elevates all of Colorado. We are assisting Colorado workers through job training and job search, vocational rehabilitation, unemployment benefits during periods of job loss, workers' compensation benefits when they are injured on the job, and receiving unpaid wages. CDLE supports the entire work life cycle of Colorado workers. Our people and our programs aren't just providing critical resources to workers, whether it's training, upskilling, career coaching, or access to a myriad of job search tools. We are also helping employers address and meet the needs the current and the future workforce may have. We do this through talent recruitment, placement, workforce training, labor law interpretation, layoff transition, assisting workers, and labor market information. We also know that as employers struggle to find talent, that we need to look at different ways on how we prepare and recruit talent into the needed roles we have, from hospitality to engineering to construction to healthcare. The way that we do this is really focusing on skills-based hiring practices. That will be a wave of the future. Not only to make sure that employers have access to talent, but also we open up doors and window opportunities in the world of work for traditionally left behind workers, mature workers inclusive in that. We know that as employers traditionally use proxies such as education and years of experience to screen people into their employment realms, we need to change that paradigm. We need to make sure employers look at and are aware of the skills and competencies of their workforce. What do job titles and occupations really require from their workers, and maybe hire based on skills and competencies and not the proxies that we traditionally use when we're looking for talent. We know that this means awareness, education, and creating opportunities for age-friendly workplaces. It's going to be imperative. I know that recently we hear over and over again how certain sectors of our economy, as we recover from the pandemic, is having a hard time finding workers. Well, that is not going to go away. As I mentioned earlier, our unemployment rate in February of 2020 was 2.9%. Most economists would consider that full employment and going into worker shortages. Because we've come out of the pandemic or in the process of doing so, we can't expect that to go away. We will continue to be in workforce shortages, and specifically skilled workforce shortages, for decades to come. And that's why it's so important that as government, as employers, and as learners and workers, we realize, how do we make sure we have opportunities to be successful through access to skilling, upskilling, reskilling, and next skilling? But employers need to make sure that they are embracing the entire work life cycle of an individual and making sure that they have opportunities for people to advance and retain their employment further on into their lives. CDLE, as mentioned, is very proud to have the Office of the Future work here at the department, which is charged with understanding, preparing for, and developing effective strategies to position all Coloradans for tomorrow and today's economy. We work to raise awareness and identify policies and programs that address future workforce challenges, including automation, artificial intelligence, globalization, and a host of other factors. The challenges presented by the future work present the need for a comprehensive, coordinated statewide strategy to prepare for tomorrow's workforce challenges with innovative solutions, including how can we help support aging workers. If we can ensure that aging workers are valued for their skills, can upskill and reskill through their career, lifelong learning connected to work, and are protected in the workplace, we are quite literally protecting our own future. I'd like to mention, hopefully all of you are aware of Proposition 118, which overwhelmingly passed in the fall, that will allow for the first time Colorado workers to have family and medical leave, paid family and medical leave, and worker protections as they take care of medical needs for themselves or their family members. This is so critical of a benefit for especially our aging workers to make sure that they can take care of their needs as perhaps they have healthcare issues or issues for their grandchildren and can continue to remain working with benefits and also work protections. I want to mention a little bit about key initiatives. CDLE is working with the future of work internally and externally. Over 38% of state Colorado employees are over 50, based on June 2020 data. As part of Governor Polis's order on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and through participation in research presented here today, we are working to ensure our aging workforce is supported. Here are the key other strategies and opportunities CDLE is working on to promote related to the experienced worker or workforce. Colorado is working to build a skill-based hiring economy. Our main partners in this effort are Skillful and the We Rework America Alliance, who have developed a training series for employers and intermediaries who work with employers to adapt skills-based hiring practices. CDLE has done train the trainer efforts through our workforce ecosystem, as well as internally in state government to various HR departments. We're incorporating skills-based hiring incentives into our stimulus proposals to encourage employers to hire using skills-based practices. By educating employers on skills-based hiring practices and promoting support to experienced workers on how to market themselves through a skills-based lens, we not only connect employers to the skilled talent that they need, we also help older workers find rewarding work. I am constantly surprised on how many people who have credentials, either occupational credentials or education credentials, don't have the ability to translate that into the skills that they can provide to an employer and how that fits into a job description. We need to make sure when people through work or through educational reskilling, upskilling, or next skilling, they're aware of the skills and competencies that they acquire and how they can crosswalk that to the work that's needed by our employers as we change and shift. Supporting local partnerships with business and industry. Sector partnerships and partnerships of our business leaders from the same industry and in a shared region who work with education, workforce development, economic development, and community organizations to address the talent and comprehensive needs of the industry. We need to get to a place where our like businesses, our industries, not just one-off businesses, understand their talent needs and what they will need today and in the future. And we make sure that we have that pipeline of workers to meet not only one employer needs, but the employers in that industry. There's efficiency and effectiveness in that strategy. We have more than 1,600 businesses in Colorado that are actively involved in 30 sector partnerships. These sector partnerships inform competency-based career pathways that ensure education, training, and workforce systems stay attuned and responsive to the needs of the labor market. The model of the partnerships works in all corners of the state and with any type of industry. During the past year, sector partnerships have developed and engaged in training strategies to support both incumbent workers and the new workers transitioning into the field. Incumbent workers are going to be critical to the skill shortage moving forward. We need to make sure that we are in front of and working with employers and our education providers to make sure that we can train current workers to have the skills that are needed in the futures to prevent layoffs and employers don't go into a dislocation and rehire that talent. It's a key strategy moving forward on how we can make sure that there is work later on into life, but also that employers have access to the skilled workforce. Work-based learning and apprenticeships. We all know that regardless of the state economy, Colorado employers who don't actively recruit and retain older workers will be put at a big disadvantage and lose out to competitors who have put thought and effort behind older worker recruitment and retention strategies. Earn while you learn models are just why employers can innovate, are just one way employers can innovate to recruit and retain older workers. We can no longer separate learning from earning. We need more pathways that combine the two. Apprenticeships provide workers of all ages with opportunities to reskill in the trades, high-tech, healthcare, and hundreds of other industries. I think there's a misperception that apprenticeships are just in construction and the skills trade industries. We've made tremendous advancements in other occupations, professional occupations that offer apprenticeship models where learners do not have to separate the upskilling from the ability to earn money. CDLE partners with local workforce systems, the U.S. Department of Labor and Employment, and partner organizations like CareerWise to implement a high-quality apprenticeship system with over 6,000 apprentices and more than 400 registered apprenticeship programs. With the establishment of the State Apprenticeship Agency, just passed through the state legislation this year, and other grants, we're focused on building building more on-ramps into earn and learn models for experienced workers and those in transition. I can't stress enough that it's never too late to learn, and the ability to upskill and work, earn and learn is and will be ever more critical to our incumbent workforce. Apprenticeships at mid-career and beyond will be critical for workers as well as employers as we will continue to deal with skilled worker shortages for decades ahead. Digital literacy and inclusion. As the workforce, as the future of work evolves, all workers will need to be able to use or work alongside and learn new technology in their workplace. We know there are huge gaps in access to affordable high-speed internet devices and often we lack opportunities to build these critical skills. CDLE is working with the Broadband Office to ensure all Coloradans have the skills they need to be tech-enabled for work, learning, and daily life. Career coaching. Colorado invests in professional development and support for frontline career development professionals, so they apply skills-based practices, labor market insight, and high-quality coaching practices to connect underemployed mid-career professionals and dislocated workers to opportunities. In Colorado, we know that with strategic career navigation, job seekers using the public workforce system earn about $12,700 more in annualized wages than those who find work on their own. Investing in support services. We've supported and implemented legislation and COVID relief dollars that help remove barriers to training and employment for all types of workers. These programs complement employment and training programs that lack the funding for supportive services by filling critical technology, transportation, housing, childcare needs, and others. In conclusion, these are just a few of the exciting efforts underway, and we look forward to applying best practices from the research here to do even more for this important segment of our workforce and economy. Next, you'll hear from Lee Willer-Berliner, Managing Director of the Colorado Workforce Development Council, about the work to enhance and sustain a skills-based talent development network that meets the needs of employers, workers, job seekers, and learners for today and tomorrow. You'll also be hearing from some of the country's leading age experts. Not only will you learn from those presenting, you'll also be able to benefit from new tools, strategies, and resources to support their efforts. Thank you all for being here. You represent a growing movement that acknowledges older Americans' significant contributions to our economy, to our culture, and our communities. We cannot do this work without you. The work you are doing is about more than recruiting and retaining older workers. It's about creating a better society, a society in which older people are not only seen, but fully appreciated for their talents and contributions. You are creating opportunity for all Coloradans. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoy your learning.
Joe, thank you so much for your words, your vision, your leadership. Just so inspiring. And I just want to thank you for not only recognizing, but pursuing this opportunity, the value of older workers and its overall impact on the economy, the vision of lifelong learning, and also want to applaud you and commend Colorado for Proposition 118, which you referenced, offering paid family leave. This is so instrumental in helping people balance their work and their lives and be part of a robust economy.